once again, and welcome to the 28th episode, I had to look it up, of the Leader Post Rider Rumblings video podcast. That was the Leader Post Philharmonic Orchestra. Murray McCormick is with us, with me. There's no plural here. With me as always to talk about all things Rough Riders and CFL and sundry other topics that managed to creep into our discussion. A bit of news to start off with. We're going to be doing this weekly throughout the off season. Now, it could be weekly WEEKLY or WEALKY, WEAKLY, depending upon your interpretation, but the phonetics are the same. We'll be doing this weekly throughout the season with a little bit of a hiatus over Christmas. So that's the news. Mark it on your calendars or whatever people mark things on these days. Their phones.
So we're done?
Yes.
That's it. Thank you for all. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate
Merry
it.
Christmas.
Yeah,
Happy New Year.
Not much to talk about in the off season.
The riders are done, but there's never any shortage of topics.
Exactly.
With pertinence to the Rough Riders, there's always a way of incorporating the Rough Riders into the discussion.
Let's jump right into it. What do you think of the eighth official on the field?
Didn't really notice it.
Yeah, I think there was I have to admit, I kind of tuned out when the Hamilton game was. I was switching over. The Steelers were coming back against the Panthers at that time, so that was kind of a bit of a priority. But I think there was one call where he made a call against the quarterback got hit in the head, and I couldn't quite find it, so I don't know what took place on that, but I didn't seem to notice it.
I was in a sports bar in Saskatoon that didn't have the CFL audio, only the video. So for some reason, I was listening to audio of Arizona and Oakland while watching the CFL playoffs on the large screen, and I tuned out of the Eastern game.
Well, why don't we make it a goal of this podcast to make sure Canadian bars have the CFL on in it, like with sound. Like there's NFL season goes to February. We have a little 3-week window in November where it should be a focus on the CFL. And I would think any good Canadian bar is going to have the CFL on with sound.
They run a lot of the screens, but the sound was in NFL's. Sometimes if you go to a sports bar where the boss isn't there and you've got somebody handling things who just doesn't know sports, as is liable to happen. For example, we got two people on the podcast who don't know sports.
Who's the other one? Not you. Yeah.
So you run into that every now and then where they're not a sports fan, but they're working there.
I have another little rant I've saved up for today.
Okay, rant away.
Moving the CFL season up 3 weeks. This is why I am against it. I love this time of year. I love this 3-week period in November where the CFL owns the sports in my mind. Everyone's talking about, regardless who's the Rough Riders in the Grey Cup, it'd be just banana crazy. But it's just, I love November. And I think moving the playoffs so you're starting them in October and stuff just doesn't do it for me. And I know I get to watch every game from the comfort of my press box or my couch, which it seems to be the other way. But I just like the field in November football. I love getting up in the morning, reading all the stories and stuff. And I just somehow think it'll get lost in October.
You wonder, there is an impact upon attendance. You would think that is weather related.
Absolutely, but, and when you and I, our biggest issue last week was how many layers we needed to wear from our jacket, or grow from our car to the press box. And I was joking. I had a sweater and a golf shirt on. It was kind of cool, but I don't. And I know. So I say that people are going to say that you don't have to sit outside, and I do, and I realize.
But I did for a lot of years. I had season tickets for 40 years.
You did, and you sat outside, and it's part of the game. And I don't think last Sunday's game was particularly, it was uncomfortable. You couldn't last for the whole game, but I don't know. And I wish I could come up with some really hard-hitting, definitive reasons for not moving this season other than I don't like it.
They monopolize the month. October is busy. You've got the World Series. You've got Major League Baseball reaching its fruition as far as the season. You got the NHL starting up. You've got the NBA kicking off. So not only are you opposite the World Series, but maybe you're opposite. Hey, LeBron's playing his first game for the Lakers tonight, or hey, Connor McDavid's first game of the year. So you are up against a few more opponents, not necessarily the culminations of the seasons in some cases. But October is the craziest sports month period. So do you add yourself there and risk the crescendo of your season being lost a little bit? That is the concern.
And we're a little older than a lot of people in the world, at least I am. That last week in November has always been that special Grey Cup day. Like we're planning family stuff and we're thinking, what do we do? Because that last it's changed as soon as because it's happening. I think they had them the first week in December one time.
The 72 Grey Cup wasn't it December, the first Sunday in December?
Something
The
like
Ian
that.
Sunter game was in December.
Yeah, that was it, because I remember that. I was driving around town. No, sorry, another story. But I just like the overall tradition. And Craig Reynolds, the president of the CEO of the Rough Riders, has said to me that I have to change with the times. And absolutely, I will change with the times grudgingly, because I love November.
Here's one for you, though. Living where we do, nice days are at a premium, especially in the fall. So who's to say that if it's a nice day in October, that people are going to go to the game? What they might say, it's a nice day in October, let's go for a walk in the park, let's spend some time outdoors, let's barbecue. It's not, the football game isn't the automatic destination if there's a nice day. So suppose you've got the Grey Cup or the playoffs in October, and it's, okay, but I don't have to spend a lot of money to go to a football game. I can go for a bike ride.
That's true.
Maybe you have more opponents if it's a nice day than you do if the weather is bad and nobody's scheduling things opposite that. I know there's many a day in October where I'm thinking, gee, I'd love to ride my bike.
Yeah.
So,
and also looking back at the other end of it, let's say June, if they start in June, kind of, I wish.
Then you're up against the Stanley Cup playoffs.
So
you've got a Major League Baseball season at both major championship at both ends of your schedule. Then if you move it up.
But I also think we saw Ottawa was sold out yesterday. I don't think Calgary wasn't. There are a lot of empty seats up in the corner of that stadium. So, and the Rider game wasn't a sellout, even though there's more than 30,000 people. They're not selling out games where it is now. So to maybe that idea they can sell out games if they hold them in the first week of October and the second 2 weeks of November.
Maybe.
It's weather comes, there's two things that happen as I've learned on my life in Saskatchewan, the Rider beats. There's weather and quarterbacks, and you can talk about all of them forever and ever, and it's going to happen that way. So I'm on the record as saying, leave the season where it is. Rob, we'll wrap this up with, what do you want to do?
I'd like to see them leave it where it is. I used to be kind of buying their argument, but I'm pretty, if they were to do it, I wouldn't really scream and protest, but I think it's nice the way it is, because like you said, there is that buzz in November, and nothing else happens in November except agribition.
Yeah.
So, and Denver Broncos losing football games except for yesterday. So, I can take that.
So, we're in November. There's football yesterday, obviously, full day of CFL. I'm going to give TSN a few kudos here, just so I have a mic and I can.
And then I'm going to rant about television.
Okay, then I can say TSN does a great pregame job. They
really do.
They had a feature last week before the Rider game on Travis Luley, just talking about life and as a football player. And they did an outstanding work on Kyran Moore and his family, the Rider receiver and an uncle. And then there's two features yesterday. Sorry, I had them in my mind, but they were very well done. And I'm just going wow. But the TSN, the coverage of the CFL gets by TSN is second to none. It's as good as what you can see in the NFL, and TSN does a great job at pregame. I love Saturday before the Grey Cup.
You know what they don't do well, though? A lot of the time during the season, CFL gets buried on SportsCenter.
Yeah, that's
true. They don't treat the CFL on SportsCenter like it's their prime property. But pregame shows and when the telecasts are on, TSN does a great job, but SportsCenter seems to be out on an island somewhere, and they'll show Major League Soccer highlights ahead of a CFL item.
I watched this morning when I was getting
not necessarily this time of year.
Yeah,
but if you're talking July, August, it's
their
really
panel is good. Their panel is so good, and I loved it when that was which Red Black jumped into the panel to celebrate with them, and they scored a touchdown. I thought that was so cool.
Can I rant now? I didn't see the TSN pregame show yesterday because I was staying in a hotel in Saskatoon that had basic cable as exists by a provider in Saskatoon. And on basic cable Saskatoon, the only TSN channel you get is TSN 3. So at noon, turn on the TV, ready to start watching the CFL game, and it was plays of the week, followed by NASCAR. Okay. So there was nowhere on this basic cable package to watch the Canadian Football League in Canada, but I could watch Fox News, and somewhere there was that Christmas Yule log channel.
Oh, I love that one.
So I could watch that, but not the CFL playoffs. What is wrong with that cable package?
That is
How does that happen?
Well,
You could watch the NFL, but you couldn't watch a CFL division final on a basic cable package. Basic being the key word.
Proud mom who has basic cable and doesn't really watch sports that much. So it suits her, but I have to take that back. She does watch the Riders now, so she switched. She changed my mind, but yeah, that's pretty horrible. I feel so sad for you because I had like everything. Because you figure
I went to a sports bar.
You get the only TSN channel of the 5 that's showing sports.
Yeah,
that's not showing.
I got NASCAR. Who cares?
Anyway, we've talked about
Grey Cup.
Grey Cup. Do you want to do our predictions or do you want to save them for last?
I'm picking Calgary to win by 4.
Oh, come on. I was picking them to win by a field goal. No, I was picking them to win by about 20. I kind of think that's the Calgary.
You never know with Calgary in a Grey Cup.
That's true, too. But boy, their defense played well yesterday.
That's what's got me thinking. So much talk has always been about Calgary's offense because they've had Bo Levi Mitchell, and traditionally they've had an excellent coterie of receivers. The running game's been good, etc. And the offense is a sexier topic than defense. But that Calgary defense is so good.
Micah Johnson is a beast.
Yeah.
And we know that, but just watching him yesterday, he dominated. And the other tackle, too, dominated. What was the other tackle? Davis, yeah.
And Alex Singleton is Alex Singleton.
And
so Davis is an end, isn't he?
No, sorry. I should have written this down. Sorry, folks.
Oh, well.
I'm on days off.
But that Calgary defense is so good.
And how about Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, though? Did he have
3 touchdowns?
3 touchdowns. And each one got better than the last. And the last one was just amazing.
Brandon Alexander had really good coverage on that last one. It was just a great catch.
So Stampeders, and I know they showed the graphic on TSN if you could watch it, that they listed all their receivers who are gone from the beginning of the season. They don't have the same ones back. And they still managed to put up pretty good points against a pretty good defense. And then their defense held arguably the most explosive offensive unit in the league. Pretty well kept them in check.
You know what it tells me? It doesn't really matter ultimately whether Zach Collaros played against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Even if the Riders had gotten by the Bombers, and I think there's a reasonable chance they would have had they had better quarterbacking. But Winnipeg goes into Calgary. They're the highest scoring team in the league. They've got an offense that has a lot more ingenuity and creativity than that, fashioned by the Rough Riders, and they couldn't score a touchdown against Calgary. So it takes the what might have been scenario out of a discussion pertaining to the Rough Riders playoffs. Geez, if Zach Collaros had been there, maybe they go to the Grey Cup. No, they would have run into the same brick wall that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers did yesterday. So they would have gotten an extra game out of it.
It tells you how important Andrew Harris is to the Bombers' offense, and that's probably Captain Obvious checking in to tell you that. But they limited him at 71 yards, I think, for Harris yesterday.
Didn't do much. The Rider game, that first game, the Riders beat him. Andrew Harris went off for 150. The next game, the Banjo Bowl, 20 yards, and then the last game. So maybe controlling Andrew Harris was the key to keeping the Bombers, off balance and focusing on Matt Nichols, who didn't have a very good game either. Wasn't particularly great. I've never been blown away by Winnipeg's receivers either. There's not a ton of speed there. No, there's Adams and it's okay. Yeah, and Dembski's got his way of running laterally. But he did that yesterday too, and I chuckled because I know you've mentioned that many times. But we'll skip down east though. Trevor Harris, you can't ignore him. 6 touchdown passes. Yeah, three holding completions all day, and against one of the best teams that's ever put on a Tiger Cats uniform in the last year or so. Sorry, that's my what? No, sorry, my Tiger. I'm trying to stand up for the Tiger Cats, and there's no standing up for the Tiger Cats yesterday. They were thumped thoroughly by a better team, and that's what happens. We saw that Trevor Harris when the Red Blacks were here, not with those numbers, but some of the passes that Trevor Harris made that day, they were so perfect. Just touching it over a linebacker. He made some wonderful passes when the Red Blacks were here. He's made some wonderful catches. Yeah. So that's what the Hamilton Tiger Cats had to deal with yesterday. The Trevor Harris that is so on fire, in collaboration with some very good weapons. And William Powell, they barely used him. They didn't. Yeah, they didn't have to. And they barely used Brad Sinopoli. No, 2 catches for 24 yards, but. Deontay Spencer, Greg Ellingson. You're a much more fashionable kind of guy than I am. Obviously. So Calgary was wearing red and black yesterday. What our Redbacks were wearing red and black yesterday. What? So
Red Blacks were wearing red and black, weren't they?
That's a tongue twister.
I know. So who's going to wear red and black on Sunday in the Grey Cup?
Why does Calgary wear black?
I don't know.
The classic Calgary uniform, red and white, beautiful.
Exactly. But I don't mind the helmets. Those helmets are sharp. I was watching those.
But why do you fuse black into that color scheme? Why mess with such a great looking uniform?
Yeah, they're classics.
Hopefully they're looking a little more like the classic versions next Sunday.
Yeah, I liked it. It's kind of funny. Calgary gets to go to Edmonton for the Grey Cup, and there's a couple of digs about that. But it's interesting. Maybe didn't we kind of have Ottawa and Calgary way at the beginning of the season? Did you have them that way?
I had Calgary and Hamilton.
Calgary, Hamilton. Yeah, I think I had. I can't remember. I'd have to.
Calgary's always a safe pick. Yeah. A lot of people were picking Edmonton at the start of the year, and they didn't make the playoffs.
Exactly. Yeah. And the Riders, I thought the Riders had a good chance to make get a home playoff game, get whatever they did out of the season. But Calgary is still Calgary, and they just keep developing guys, receivers trot out, Micah Johnson, linebackers are there, Alex Singleton,
Richard Sindani, the University of Regina Ram, makes a key catch. They just keep finding guys, and I thought that
it takes them a while. Though. We'll give Calgary. It's not what they took them a while to get used to this receiving corps, because there was that slump where they almost lost 3 games in a row. I think they lost 3 games in a row. So they were showing some blemishes and some wrinkles, but boy, they got a couple of weeks to get things together, and then came out in the biggest game of the year.
Bo Levi Mitchell is Bo Levi Mitchell. I thought that Calgary's personnel would be impacted a bit when John Murphy went to Saskatchewan. I thought, okay, he's been a pretty important player in what happens with the Stampeders. Now he's no longer there. How is that going to affect the Stampeders? Not one bit. No, with this assembly line of talent just keeps coming on in to the Calgary Stampeders.
And who do you think that gets that credit? Huffnagel? Huffnagel hiring the right people to do the right things.
And then he shuts up. Do you ever hear from John Huffnagel anymore?
Not very often.
He doesn't care if he gets any of the credit. He's happy for Dave Dickinson and that staff to just handle things. John Huffnagel probably has zero ego. Just let it happen. And there aren't a lot of examples in sports where the coach has moved upstairs and we saw that here. Yeah. The coach has moved upstairs, and then the coach underneath him is able to thrive. You saw that in San Francisco for a brief time with George Seifert under Bill Walsh. Yeah. It didn't work here with Greg Marshall under Ken Miller. It didn't work in BC with Mike Benavides underneath Wally Botto. By and large, that formula doesn't work because there's always a specter of the old coach who doesn't go away. But Calgary seems to be the exception to that, because John Huffnagel just lets Dave Dickinson do his job, and it's not Dave Dickinson's fault there was a fumble last year. It was Dave Dickinson's fault that they went for that short yardage
that was
play 2 years ago. But the thing is, they'll atone for all that this year, I suspect.
So what do you do if you're Devon Claybrooks, who's the guy, who's the next guy to be the next head coach in the CFL? Like, he could stay in Calgary and do quite well for a while longer and maybe be how long Craig Dickinson goes. Like, I kind of wonder
how's the new cap going to affect that, though?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how does it? How do you not leave a team to take an opportunity, but knowing that you're pretty good position with the team you're in now, and they're treated pretty well?
And he can pick his spots. He can wait for Hamilton. He can, Halifax. He can wait for the next great opportunity if he's so inclined. Dave Dickinson had other opportunities to go other places. He was even interviewed here.
Yeah.
He was just happy to stay in Calgary and wait for that line of succession to take place. Calgary seems to be a good place for a coach to develop and not rush himself. But if you're Devon Claybrooks right now and you're looking around, are there a lot of places I really want to go?
Do you really want to go to Montreal, even though it's a great city?
I mean, Mike Sherman's supposed to be back there, though.
Sorry, not Montreal.
Toronto.
Sorry, I went too far east.
But if you don't have a quarterback if you go to Toronto.
I know.
So why not just wait and pick your spots? Because you're fine in Calgary, unless that coaching cap really hits. But I get the feeling the coordinators are still going to be well paid. The head coaches are still going to be well paid. The personnel guys are still going to be well paid. But if you're an assistant equipment manager or a quality control coach, then you're in trouble. It's going to squeeze out the little guys more than I think it's going to affect the big guys who make enough money to absorb the kind of hit that this is.
And I think the Rough Riders are going to get hit too, because there seems to be more coaches on the Rough Riders sidelines and around the team than any other team. They have a bigger staff than anybody else, so they're going to be impacted to bring their team back and more aligned with it. Because I don't think. I counted. None of the other teams have 15 head coaches.
They needed a census to count all the Rider coaches.
I know. And there'd be some there. There's guys there. I've been around Chris for 3 years. I still don't know who they are and what they do. There are some guys. There's one guy shows up and he's there on Sunday, runs the elevator.
There was the one coach who's always beside Chris Jones when the signals are being. transmitted. And I had a lot of readers ask me, who is that? And I responded, I don't know. So I looked it up, and it's Merritt Bowden.
Was that the guy with the crazy hair?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But you see some of these coaches on the sidelines, like, who are they?
Exactly.
Where they? I grew up, and it was assistant coach, head coach.
Yeah.
That was pretty easy to figure out. Now it's, when the Riders won the Grey Cup in 2013, they had 2 defensive backs coaches. There used to be two assistant coaches, period.
Yeah.
But it's gotten a little out of control with the numbers. And if teams have enough money to pay that many coaches, I think the CFLPA's got a really good case here to say, okay, if you got that money, why isn't it going to us? Why are you paying all these coaches to tie the shoelaces of the other coach? If you're pleading poverty, or we can't give you any more, we can't bump the cap up, why do you have all these coaches? Why do you have all these administrative expenses? Give the money to the players. I hope the players get a really big bump in the next cap.
And you think that's not part of the CFL's strategy, negotiating strategy, by introducing this cap to see the players? We're trying to bring other people in line with you guys, and we're going to ask you this. Because I'll be honest, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't see the players getting a big pay bump out of this contract. I don't think the money is there. The money's there, but I don't think it's the money to take a guy from making the minimum of 55, let's say, to make him what would be a reasonable price. I think 55,000 a year is a pretty good salary when you're coming straight out of university. It's not bad, but it's not very good when you only got a 3-year career. So
yeah, but
I don't know what the right figure would be. What would be a fair compensation for a first-year player, but I don't think they're going to get, and I don't think the veterans are going to say, well, we got to give the first-year guys more money.
They're the first people they sell out.
Yeah, so they want more money. And the top end guys like quarterbacks. Is anybody else besides top end in CFL besides quarterbacks? Not really, eh? Running backs a little bit.
You get the receivers. Once upon a time, the Milt Stiegels and G. Roy Simons would be in the $200,000 range.
But now more. Like even Adam Biggs, I thought was 170, and you would think there was a guy that would earn more than 170,000 a year.
The next in line after the quarterbacks is the starting Canadian.
Yeah, that's
the impactful starting Canadian.
Yeah, so
Brendan Labatt gets paid a lot of money.
Yeah,
for somebody who doesn't register a stat all year.
That's a very good point. So let's guys like Riley, who they're talking 600,000 a year.
It's likely where it goes.
That's where it goes for him.
If there's any bump in the cap.
Yeah, it's going to be those guys who can get the money, and and there's healthcare, and there's CTE and concussions and all sorts of other little things that they want to get straightened out, which is fine, and go negotiate as hard as they can, get as much as they can. But I just don't see the CFL somehow having this great big vault for the money from the TSN.
Even if they do,
rush.
That union isn't going to be able to extract it because it's not going to be strong when it needs to be strong. It's just traditionally a pretty weak union. So I don't expect that to change. And I also wonder about the TSN situation. Next time that contract comes up for negotiation, I don't know when it's up. I know it was extended.
2022.
Next time it does, what's the negotiating climate? Sportsnet's calendar is already full with NHL and baseball. Global doesn't do sports. CBC says it's out of the live sports business. So who would TSN be negotiating against?
That's true.
Is there going to be competition for that TV contract? And if so, how does that affect the amount of money the CFL is going to get?
Maybe the Mexican TV channels will pick it up.
Like, who knows? And since the last TV deal was agreed to with the CFL, TSN has lost the National Hockey League, and Bell Media, like many media outlets, has faced some cutbacks. So does TSN have the wherewithal to pay that much money for the CFL deal in the future, and B, do they have to? And is there competition? If not, can the CFL count on getting the same kind of windfall that they got? And how does that affect the overall revenues? And if you're looking at a deal taking effect in 2019 that is likely going to expire after the TV deal, you've got to weigh in the anticipated revenues from TV, don't you?
I think so. But where's the CFL without TSN? Like, boy, you think back to we go back to many days of, way back when there were just 2 games on a Sunday. Maybe even then, and there was no Friday night football, no Thursday night football, the Saturday triple headers. TSN has the CFL, its product has improved, but TSN coverage of it has just gone like, tell people there's a day that every game wasn't on TV. Yeah. Like, remember Access used to pick up, there'd be a big game would be on, and they'd have to.
Tom Shepard once had to arrange for a game to be on available in Saskatchewan.
So imagine the CFL without TSN, and it kind of seems
it's hard to believe, and
seems pretty scary.
there's a generation of fans that's unaccustomed to this. But the first thing we used to do when the CFL schedule came out or the Rider schedule came out was look for the ones that weren't televised.
Yeah.
And then there's poor me sitting back in Regina trying to write a column off a game that's not even on the TV.
Yeah,
that was always a lot of fun.
That was black and white days, wasn't it?
that was kinescope days.
Yeah.
So it now you just take it for granted that it's going to be on.
Like there's people. Someone sent me an email. No, do they still black out games? And I kind of laughed about it. I haven't heard of blackout in so long. That's just. I remember Jim Hobson saying, they're not doing that. This is our way to sell our product, and it's the way it's done. Well, maybe we've talked about everything except football.
We got blackouts now, though, because the Detroit stations are back on cable. So the Lions games are blacked out.
Oh, praise the Lord. That's
we
good.
still have blackouts, but it's the Detroit
So
Lions.
if the
Who wants
Lions
to watch
are on
that?
TV and no one is watching, do the Lions really exist?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
1960, I think when did they last win a title? Was it the Bobby Lane days? Must have been the Bobby Lane days.
Did you say you wanted to talk about the Steelers' comeback against those hated Jaguars?
Connor should have caught that first touchdown.
I should have. Yeah, I know. But he came back strong. Big Ben, that's a gutsy play by Big Ben, that 5-yard run and just go over the goal.
Barely got in.
Yeah, but barely. He got in. That's it. Barely is he's just finding different words, but he got in. And I can admit I'm a Steelers fan, and it was fun to see them do it because I didn't think he was 0. His pass efficiency rating was 0 in the first half for Ben Roethlisberger. So when do you see that?
Not much below Matt Nichols in the. What they have 35 passing yards in the first half.
Yes, I know
that Calgary defense.
Yeah, but what happened to Hamilton? Do you think Hamilton just showed who they truly are? Thought that Jeremiah Mazzola is a great quarterback, but not quite ready to step up yet.
But he's 30 years old.
I know.
People because Jeremiah Mazzoli hasn't had a long shelf life in the CFL, people think, okay, he's mid-20s. He's 30 years old. He's the same age as Zach Claros.
Wow.
So it's time.
Yep.
You've got to start winning those games. And granted, the Tiger Cats receiving core was depleted by injuries. They had injuries to deal with numerous places, but they got absolutely taken to school by Ottawa. And
it was over in the first half. It was well over in the first half.
And nobody ever talks about Rick Campbell when they talk about great coaches. Like Rick Campbell's up for Coach of the Year against Chris Jones. I think that's to be announced Thursday.
Yep.
I'm thinking Chris Jones will win because it's based on regular season. But no, Rick Campbell's so understated. And when you talk about the great coaches in CFL, you talk about Wally, and you talk about Dave Dickinson, you talk about Mark Trestman. Chris Jones's name is certainly part of the conversation, etc. But there's Rick Campbell, who's now going into his 3rd Grey Cup game in 5 years with a franchise that was established in 2014.
Yeah.
I mean, Rick Campbell is very quickly carving out the kind of coaching resume that his dad had.
Absolutely. But
it's amazing.
Problem is, it never has as much weight as doing that well in the West Division, though. Isn't it kind of tempered a little bit that you're in the East? It's always got at least 2 teams that aren't going to be any good and stuff. So it's kind of
an 8-9-1 Ottawa team won a Grey Cup.
Yeah, a cakewalk to be host a playoff game. So he's always going to have that.
Campbell is just really good.
Yeah, he is really good. And Marcel Desjardins, that's the general manager of Thinking. Yeah, but he brings in talent, brings in players, and you watch those guys are out there. And they get great receivers, and they get Ellingson, and they get Sinopoli, and they get Dante Spencer, and a great offensive line. Powell.
They're tremendous.
And what a play! I don't know if you've gone there. That's a bucket list place to go watch a game. I know.
Isn't it great?
It's just the stadium, that everything around there, every bar you could possibly imagine, to go there. So it's a day-long event to go to a game, and then if you're afford it, it could become a night-long event too if you lean that way.
I saw my first game in Ottawa last year. And I was fortunate to see 2 games there because I saw a regular season game, saw the playoff game. And what hit me both times is this is what, as nice as the new Mosaic Stadium is, this is what it could be when you go to Ottawa. And that all the ancillary venues around there, the tentacles of that stadium and all the possibilities that you could have kind of streaming out from that stadium. Whereas in Regina, you got Mosaic Stadium, and maybe you got another Tim Hortons out of the deal.
Yeah,
it's really a limiting type area.
And nothing against the exhibition board. It's all about agribition and stuff. So all those buildings are there for agribition and hosting the exhibition and stuff like. There's no chance of having 1,000-seat restaurant there that's going to take you in and stuff. And
but you see the potential of spin-off businesses.
That's I've thought that's what could have happened if they built the stadium downtown. you would have seen that kind of takes off. Dudney Avenue would have become just hopping. It would have been like the bar, the place to go. And it's still pretty good to go, but it would have been, I think, more.
We're too old to go to Dudney Avenue.
Well, we can go before 6.
I drop my godson off on Dudney Avenue and pick him up when he's done. I'm not allowed to go in any establishments there because I'm old.
That's good. But they don't have any jazz bars.
That should be taken care of.
That's true.
But
one day.
Now there's talk that, you have a new arena in Regina. And a lot of the talk is centered around Everaz Place and what do you do with the Brand Center. But if there's a new arena in Regina,
downtown,
put it downtown. I was at SaskTel Center on Saturday night to watch the Saskatoon Blades game and enjoyed myself immensely. But then you realize, going to the venue and coming out of the venue, why did they ever build it here?
But it's getting more built up around it.
Yeah.
There's way more things to do around it.
There's a Tim Hortons there, too.
There's a Tim Hortons, there's a Husky. But there's also some more hotels and stuff that is building up around there. So it's not as big. I remember before you'd hit the lights at the highway and then you'd have like another, it seemed like 20-minute drive to the stadium. When the Briar was on there and the weather was bad, I remember thinking, geez, this is a long ways from there. I was in London covering a Briar. I'm trying to think back to maybe 11, somewhere around there.
Was that the last Jan Betker one?
No, it was a Briar.
Oh, Briar, I'm sorry.
But
didn't you go to London for women's curling?
No.
Somewhere in Ontario. Sorry.
Anyway, so the Briar, but London has a brand new arena downtown, and it's full of bars. It's just this crazy, wild environment, even for the Briar, where it's a little older crowd, but the downtown has really blossomed by having this brand new arena, right? It's not brand new, it's over now, but I can think, boy, could we do that in Regina? What a difference to be going downtown. What a reason to be going to those places. And
you're going to get more events in an arena than in a stadium.
Oh, yeah.
So if you've got 40 hockey games and this and that and this and that, there's more reasons to build around there.
But it's worn out.
When
I go there,
I'm worn out when I go up the stairs to the press box.
Yeah, but
and it's not friendly at all for people with disabilities.
Okay, well, I just found they put new seats in there, and the sight lines are good, and the Pats put on a good show, and I keep thinking, do we need a new arena? I don't know, maybe the luxury boxes aren't there or not, but they're not.
It's a discussion that has to be had. That place is 40 plus years old, and
in
Saskatoon they're already talking about replacing a 30-year-old building.
I remember one of the first WHL games I ever covered back when I worked in the Moose Jaw Times Herald. The Warriors, before they moved to Moose Jaw, they played a regular season game against the Pats, one of the last two. And I thought that was the biggest press box I'd ever been in my life. I thought, wow, this can't be any bigger. Now I look up going, that's the smallest press box you're ever going to see. That's the smallest stuff. But I remember that game against the Brand Center, the Winnipeg Warriors played the Pats, and I came to cover that game. And
smallest press box ever is Swift Current.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
First, you have to take the fireman's ladder to get to the press box.
Exactly, yeah. I've been there for
Greg Harder is our hockey writer. He can worry about that one.
He can worry about that, and that's never going to happen as we get luxurious press boxes where we would probably, if this watch. I was thinking back to Saturday. I know it's kind of, what a crazy day last Saturday was. We were dealing with all the talk, banter back and forth with Zach's going to play, Zach's not going to play. The hype about the playoff game in the CFL today. And I thought, and this Saturday was pretty well got up and did nothing all day and didn't think of anything.
I drove to Saskatoon and went to a hockey game that night.
So good for you. Yeah, I watched.
That's my exciting life.
Narcos Mexico broke on Netflix, so I watched that for a lot. Anyway, that's not football.
Well, those topics are a sign we're losing steam, so I think we should relieve the audience of our presence.
Did we do our picks for the Grey Cup? I can't remember.
We have to.
Okay.
We have to. I picked Calgary by 4.
Well, I'm going to pick Calgary by 10, and I just think... Did you have 5 earlier? Yeah, I'm changing my mind. And I'll probably change my mind by the time this podcast gets to an end too. I don't see Calgary blowing it this year. I don't think so either. I think we're going to all sit back and maybe watch the last time we'll see Bo Levi and Mitchell play in the CFL for a couple of years. I think he's going to go NFL route and go for it. Why not? Go for it. Look who's starting in Buffalo these days. Exactly. So go for it, Bo. Trevor Harris, maybe you'll see him in green and white next year because he's a free agent. But that's he earned himself some money this past weekend. Yeah. So it's going to be a great. I don't know if it's going to be a great game. I think it'll be fun. I always love the Grey Cup. It's always got a special place in my heart. I don't know about yours. No, I wish we were there. Got close last year. Would have been fun. Oh, well. Yeah. 2019 perhaps. 20 maybe for sure. Murray McCormick, your prediction is wrong, but thank you for being with us. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Do you want to read this one? Sure. We have to do this. It's the law. You want me to do it in my radio voice? No, I can do it in Murray voice. I'll poke you while you're Please rate us on iTunes and leave a review of Rob's poking me is not fun. The poking will not help us grow the podcast, but it helps us grow the podcast when you leave us a review. And thank you, and we'll be back next week.
That was awful. For Murray McCormick, I'm Rob Vanstone. We'll talk to you next week.